Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity Podcast, episode 203. Now, we are joined by a very special guest today, a first-time guest on our podcast, and also a first-time guest, I've just been told, on any podcast. But he's a fascinating guy, a lovely guy, interesting guy, and I'll introduce you to him in a second. But first of all, I'm just going to touch base with Mr. Peter Lant and just see how he is getting on. How are you doing, Pete? You all right?
Yeah, I'm right. Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm a bit tired today. I did like.
Oh, I saw it. Didn't you do like
It was 27 degrees yesterday, and because with the walking group, I now do a walk on a Wednesday evening. When it's that hot, if Sid can't handle it, I have to. So last year, say I would take him out early in the morning, and then I didn't have to take him for a walk for the rest of the day, right? But now I have to take him out early in the morning, and I have to do the walk as well. And I was doing a recce for the walk, and it's about 3 miles away where the start was. So I ended up walking about 20 miles in 27-degree heat yesterday.
I was going to say, didn't you do like over 40,000 steps? Was it
42,500? I think
Yeah.
it was. Yeah, I got myself a nice t-shirt tan going on now as well. So, there you go.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, like I said just before we came on, we've got our gym walking weekend this weekend. So
Yeah.
we're going to Norfolk for the weekend for a couple of days of walking with, I think there's 26 members going. So it's going to be, so I'm hoping the weather's going to be good because I'm hoping to get into the sea for a bit of a swim on each of the three of tomorrow evening and then Saturday morning and Sunday morning. So no,
Well, what I will do is I'll make an apology to all of our listeners and our esteemed guest if I fall asleep. It's nothing personal. It's just because I'm tired.
You won't fall asleep. Get yourself a little coffee. You'll be fine. Right. We are joined today live from Northern Ireland, from a small town just outside or near to Belfast, by Andrew Russell, or Andy Russell. I'm going to call him Andy. This is more friendly and shorter. So by Andy Russell from Northern Ireland, on Instagram as at Gira_garage. We will go through that at the end, and we'll explain why he's called that. We'll talk about that probably on the podcast. And what's that?
You can see it.
You can see it, yeah. But we will, we can see, if you're watching, you can see the garage in question behind you.
And if you are watching, please appreciate the lighting that is in Andy's garage, because we could hardly see him. And he goes, "Hang on, I'll just sort that out." And he basically went and opened the garage door, which is fantastic. And it looks great.
It looks great. It looks like he's got professional studio lighting. They just opened the garage door, so that's great. So yeah, Andy, how are you doing, mate? You okay?
I'm doing great, guys. Yeah, cheers for having us on. Lovely to be here.
So, excellent. I just thought actually, when we had Pavlo Cordiaca on last week, his English, I mean, it's amazing, much better than me speaking any other language.
Can I just say before you go any further, be careful.
Yeah. No, but what I was going to say was he said, because he said, "I'll talk slowly because English isn't his first language." And then he said, "Actually, it was good. I'm glad you weren't speaking Irish English because I wouldn't be able to understand a word of it." So it's like,
presumably that's from talking to Paro Dwyer.
Probably, yeah. Probably, yeah. He probably can't understand a word he's saying. But anyway, yeah, Andy. So you're joining us from the garage, and with the garage door is open, and we're talking. So I suppose, I mean, I've known you for a while. I've been at a couple of Strongfirst certifications with you before, so we've had a beer together and had a bit of a chat around training, and we're connected on social media, and I follow kind of everything you do. One of the things we'll definitely talk about is you lifting the Dinnie Stones up in Scotland. We'll talk all about that. But do you want to maybe just introduce yourself by just, I suppose, talking about, your tell us how old you are, your background in training or sport or lifting, or kind of how you got to where you are today, and the kind of the interests that you have, if that's okay.
Yeah. So, like I say, I'm now 40, and I started off way long ago, I suppose, a very early teenager, with a bit of swimming and then rugby. But my natural physique wasn't precisely swimmer. It was more tight head prop or hooker. So I just ended up going more into the rugby and played throughout school. But then whenever I was at university, I was playing with down to sort of a local club with some friends, and we were having a sevens game in practice, and ended up dislocating my shoulder and stuff, and that then was followed by, if anyone's ever seen Lethal Weapon, putting the shoulder back in sort of thing off the rugby post. It was, but that then started like a reoccurring dislocations and things of the same shoulder and stuff. So I ended up not just stopping rugby, but training altogether off the back of that. But I still had that sort of lifestyle and that sort of student style, sort of lifestyle. So I was still drinking, eating, partying and stuff like that. And I ended up getting very conditioned and very losing any sort of muscle mass you had from that history, and just getting very, very overweight and unfit. So at some point there was like I think looking at photos of holiday, and there was like a line in the sand moment of, oh dear, something needs to be done here. And that sort of started the fitness journey back again, if you like. Just starting off with the likes of Les Mills style classes, like spin and body pump and all that sort of stuff, and just sticking with it to keep that sort of, I suppose, fad, if you like, at the time of trying to get fit and healthy again, and changing that from a fad to a habit, and then into a more permanent lifestyle sort of thing.
So what age would you have been, Andy, when you kind of had this line in the sand moment and you saw the photo from holiday or whatever, and you'd made
Oh gosh, probably, I don't know, 33, 30, it got on, it'd been just after university, it had just become this constant lethargy sort of thing that had just become what it was. And sort of in around somewhere in around the early 30s, I sort of had to sort of draw a line in the sand, because I was sort of driving a lot. I work like a full-time shift job, and it's about an hour's drive in and out of work. But even sitting in the car, I was getting like pain around like my lower ribs and things, just sitting, for an hour solid and things like that, and just something had to give. So that's where the line in the sand was sort of drawn. It was sort of, it would have been just before we became, a couple of years before we became parents. So it was getting just that in time. It would have been early 30s.
Yeah. Okay. And you went down the kind of it's interesting because we had Donna Moore on before, who went on to become 3 times world's strongest woman, and she started doing like body pump and Les Mills kind of classes. And it's interesting that it's kind of that someone like yourself, I never would have expected you to say, spinning and Les Mills classes and things because of where you are now. But it's fascinating that these kind of gateway drugs into
I was going to say what I think about that is as well, because you can see it in the industry sometimes, don't you? And some of these things get a bad rap because they're like, it's a mass produced thing and doesn't really get you anywhere and all that. And it's like, yeah, but it gets you. And I don't know how true that is, I don't know. But Donna Moore talking about it, you talking about it, it's like you started doing that and then it gave you a leg up to where you wanted to be next and where you wanted to go. You know what I mean? Which is absolutely amazing. I love that.
I think part of it though for me was there was the guy that owned the gym and sort of ran the gym at the time was a really good PT, and he had a really good way of presenting his classes and leading the classes, and that sort of helped stick with it because it was a great atmosphere in it, sort of thing, and that went a long way with it, so it did. So he sort of deserved a lot of the credits at the time.
So where did you go next then? You were at this part of this gym and you were
it was a small gym, and it was really only like group classes, and from there Whenever that gym unfortunately went under, we transitioned to a CrossFit gym here in the town, and I did that for a couple of years. And again, just getting a bit fitter, getting a bit stronger. Never any good at CrossFit. But it was a really nice community around the gym, which made it they did that really, really well, and that sort of made it just fun going and sticking with it, and stuff like that. So yeah,
that obviously got you into kind of lifting weights and things, and
yeah,
do like Olympic lifting and deadlifts, and probably got you into that kind of thing. Yeah.
And I sort of had enjoyed. I actually had done like a kettlebell workshop, and nothing as serious as like 101 or kettlebell 102 sort of thing with Strongfirst, but just a general sort of workshop at that original little gym. And then I'd always enjoyed the kettlebell workouts as well in any of the CrossFit style workouts, although a different style of stuff. But yeah, I enjoyed that, and it sort of went from there, and I sort of bought myself a pair of kettlebells off the back of that to have at home, sort of thing. And that, although they didn't get used particularly much at the time, they were there, and became more of a.
What size? What size did you buy?
I think they were 224.
Okay, because you're quite a big guy, aren't you?
It was maybe a little bit. Yeah. They were 224s, and I think I'd won like some random online competition, and I got like a pair of like 16s as well from a online competition. And while I was there collecting those competitions from the place, I got myself 224s while I was at it.
Yeah.
And then that was sort of it, sort of thing, the start of that sort of journey down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, because I remember, I think Jeff Sokol put up the other day about how, like, the bro down the gym who gets into kettlebells, he buys a pair of 32s because that's like, because you can bench that dead easy. So you might as well. And it's just like, yeah, good luck with that. That's why I asked, because I thought, like, you're a big lad, so you might be like, oh, I'm big and strong. I'll just get a couple of 32s and that'll be easy.
And then so you obviously went, enjoyed the kettlebells and took that further and ended up doing the kind of the Strongfirst SFG1.
Yeah.
How was that pathway to finding out about Strongfirst, to then maybe training for this certification, to doing it? How did that all come about?
Yeah, so for ourselves, when we became parents for the first time, we had there was a couple of things going on there, but part of it was I just was struggling to do like the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock class sort of thing. I've never been overly a huge fan of, just personally, of like the Globo gym sort of thing. So I just decided at that point, because I couldn't just do a workout at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. It's 1:15 now. I've got time. Go, and sort of in order to get that something done there, I sort of went on the University of Google, and the first thing that came up was sort of Pavel, Strongfirst, Dragon Door, RKC, Strength Matters, and people like Dan John and things like that, who you've obviously had on numerous times. And I think the first thing I did actually was that Dan John 10,000 swing challenge of his, which he's probably sort of hears about all the time, I would imagine. So
it's a great program, isn't it? I've done that a few times.
Yeah.
And I think it's the first few days you're like, oh God, this is, but by the time you get to about maybe, it's 20 sessions, isn't it? If you do 500 strings a session. So by the time you get to maybe about the 10th session, you're like really into it, aren't you? And it's really, and they're not quite so daunting, and you just get them,
you're
so
more and more invested into it as you see that deadline, that sort of end goal at the end, but I did that, then tried a few other programs that were on various archives and things like that, and that sort of lent the way to sort of seeing, well, what more is there out there with this. at that point, I sort of was just having a hunt around like Facebook and stuff like that, and I came across Finbar. And I had a chat with him, and he had mentioned the TSC, the Tactical Strength Challenge and things. And I sort of went and looked at what that was, and from there, decided, yeah, I can get behind that, and trained that is sort of a mainstay of what I was training for at the time. So yeah.
And you're, because like Pete mentioned, you're a big strong guy, but you do quite a few pull-ups, don't you, on the Tactical Strength Challenge when you've done them? I think
I've done quite well in the past. Part of that was due to like I suppose it's one of these things. It's a positive thing that can come out of social media. You get like a friendly sort of competition with some people. There was 3 of us who were sort of doing that elite TSC at the same sort of time, and it was like myself, Michael Duncan, and Gareth Malloy and stuff, and it was all you know, it was like they were top guys, like, and really friendly, and it was all good competition, like, so it was all, but yeah, I did okay in the pull-ups. In probably my weakest of the fair enough to say. I mean, I think at one point I got 18 or 19, but that took everything. It basically took everything.
Because I remember seeing your numbers, I think, and I thought, bloody hell, he's got a lot of pull. I just, I think, like maybe like 10 would be really, really good, and I saw your numbers. I was like, how's he done that? That's incredible, it's really good. Do me. But like I say, if you're in competition with like Gareth Malloy and like you say, Michael Duncan and stuff, then it kind of drags you on a bit, doesn't it? And gives you, excellent. And and then so you went on to do the SFG, the Strongfirst Level 1 certification, which is a 3-day event that we spoke about many times on the podcast before. But how was your training for that and doing that? Because I'd imagine because of your strength and everything else that you I mean, well, was it a challenge for you? Was the 3?
It was sort of an Everest for me. In truth, I had been working a program for a while, and then I came off it, and I went into like a deload sort of week, and maybe like 50% of my deadlift or something I lifted, and as I locked out, I just felt like this pop sort of feeling in my lower back, and I had done a real number on a disc, and it sort of all started getting very sore and back spasms, and like that sciatica as the nerve got impinged and everything, and it was absolutely horrendous. And then I sort of had to do my physio and behave and do everything that I had to do to get back from that, and I was given a green light to start training again. And as I was coming down the stairs, of all things, with a bit of laundry and sort of thing, one of the kids had left a toy at the bottom of the stairs, and I stood on it, and it went out from under me, and I did the disc again, straight off again. So I had to go and rehab that injury again. And whenever I came back to it, I'd been used at that point through the Tactical Strength Challenge. I had been doing like a 32 kilo snatch test. So whenever I got back to snatching, I had a real issue with keeping my ego in check, because I was struggling with a 16 even at times, with the pain and getting back to from where what the injury had done. So I sort of ended up looking at it and saying I need sort of an end point, because I was having a hard time reconciling my ego with what I had done versus what I could do at the minute. So I was like, right, if I have an end goal, I can reconcile that, building up so low and building my way up again. And that's when I sort of decided, right, I've been talking about this for a wee while. I'm going to book into the SFG and use that as my sort of end. I think it had only just happened as well. So it was like, it usually is in October in England. So I think it was like November or something like that. It had just happened, so I was giving myself like 11 months to come back from sort of the injury and get myself back up to, for me, it would be a 28 kilo snatch test. So yeah, and that's what it was. So in the end, it turned into a bit of an Everest. But we got there, and it was a fantastic weekend. Great fun. Yeah. So
it's interesting because so many people, including myself, you know, I would have just assumed. I asked the question, but I kind of thought, oh, well, this guy would have, it would have been nothing for him. You know, it was so easy. He could have just done it almost, you know, without any training and with your eyes closed and all the rest of it. But then you just don't know the stories behind things, do you? And like you say, that couple of injuries and having to rehab and build back up is really interesting. I think that's a good, important kind of message, and important for people to remember that we do see. We say it regularly on here. You see people on social media, and you see the kind of what you want to see, and you see what you're looking for. But you don't really see the story behind what you see, you know. So
yeah,
that's really important and really powerful because, I had no idea about that. So that's really interesting. That's great. And then you
yeah.
went back again, didn't you? And then you kind of assisted at it the following year, I think.
Yeah, so
Assisted
the
at
following
SFG,
year
yeah.
I came back over and assisted in England. Brett Jones was taking it that year with Claire, and I was again great experience, and it was again great fun sort of catching up with some people who had sat it the year before and were back again, and some of the more regular team sort of thing as well. That was fantastic seeing it from the other side.
Yeah. And then
So
how did
yeah.
how did you then when did the kind of the idea, I mean, do you want to explain what the Dinnie Stones are? Because we like I say, we've not spoke about this on the podcast before. I know that some people will know, but a lot of people won't. um
Yeah.
did you want to kind of explain to us kind of what the Dinnie
Yeah.
Stones are,
So
and then kind of why you got interested in doing
yeah.
it? Yeah.
So I think like quite a lot of people during COVID, I think it was during COVID, that documentary came out by Rogue. They brought out a whole series of them on different strength sports and things like that. They did one on Iceland and they did one on Scotland and Stoneland. And I'd watched it, and it seemed really something different and outside the box. And I think having done so many sort of tactical strength challenges and things like that, I just felt it was maybe stagnating a little bit. It was just getting a little bit samey. So I just wanted to mix things up a bit. And at the same time, I think I had seen Sven Rieger, head for Strongfirst Germany, doing a podcast, and he was talking about it, and I think he was starting his journey for it at that point. And I sort of, probably can't see it here, sort of a camera view. I have sort of keep like a brainstorming whiteboard that I'll stick things on that might be fun to try or to train for, or to give a shot, give a shot. And I sort of just put Dinnie Stones ?
Yeah, I've got one of those as well. Yeah, I might go and write Dinnie. I'll be back in a minute. I love that.
Yeah, so I'd seen all that, and I decided after I'd sort of got my deadlift up to quite a good level for someone who's not a power lifter or a strongman. So I decided, well, my deadlift's sort of in around this sort of region. Okay, maybe not. Now's the time to give this a shot. So I contacted Sven and we started planning it. But what the Dinnie Stones effectively are, other than madness, is two big stones in the middle of sort of Aberdeenshire. They're, I think it's 333 kilos combined. The big one's about 188 and the little one is 145 kilos.
That's good. That's good memory because I've got that written down in front of me because I did my
Yeah.
research before I came on. But yeah, that's good.
That's great. So I don't have to pretend it's not written on a piece of paper here as well.
Okay.
Well then, just in case.
Oh, dear. Good. Yes.
Yeah. So and they've got 2 iron rings on them, and basically they were used as counterbalances back in the day for creating this bridge that's down that way. And at the time, sort of the famed strongman of the era, Donald Dinnie, had lifted these stones across the bridge, and it became sort of a thing that people would come and test their strength by lifting these stones. But then they were sort of lost for years, and then they were recovered, and then it's become more of a thing with the documentary of people training to lift them. So it's an interesting.
Weren't they found in a river somewhere?
Yeah. So where they reside, they're outside like a cafe that's on the country estate sort of thing, and there's a bridge that you drive onto it over. That's the bridge, and they were found, I think, somewhere near or just in the river. There. I don't know if they had originally been kept down by the riverbank, and then as sort of the river changes size and shape over time, they had sort of just become submerged and stuff and lost. But yeah, it's a bit of a bizarre lift. It's sort of I suppose the term for it's sort of a straddle lift, with sort of like a sumo deadlift, but with one arm sort of twisted behind you and the other one in front of you. So it's sort of it's an awkward position to get into.
It's almost like you see, is it called a Jefferson?
The
like
2 rings themselves, they're.
I was going to say,
Yeah,
it's almost like a Jefferson
Jefferson
deadlift, isn't it? Where you kind of put one,
Yes.
that you straddle the bar and you have one hand in front and one hand behind and pick up. It's similar.
Yeah, it's sort of like a sumo stance, but then you're sort of offset as well. So one foot's a wee bit more forward as well. And it's an awkward lift. And then the 2 rings are much thinner than a barbell. The big one has the challenge that it's obviously got the bigger weight on it, whereas the thinner one, it's not even circular, it's more sort of oval. So your hand sort of gets crushed up in to the little ring a lot more, and it sort of I think the little one's the one that does all the damage as far as cuts and bruises go. Certainly on me, it was taking the back of the calf off me a few times, and
yeah, we've got
we've
got a member of the gym called Emma Gray who's training for it at the moment, and she's tiny. She's like, I want to say if she's 5'4", I'm probably being generous. And she's like about 75 kilos, and she's training for it at the moment. And a guy who's done it as well was programmed for her, I think. Well, I know, and she's working towards it. And so we've got the replica, the Cerberus kind of Dinnie pins, and stuff. So yeah, but I know exactly the ring I'm talking about. Yeah,
they're back there somewhere.
Yeah. Wow. So how long a process was that for you to? Because I've got written down you're the 200. So I presume because there's like a book or something there, isn't there, where they record everyone who's done it, and you're the 274th person to officially lift the Dinnie Stones. Yeah. So how long a process was that for you?
Yeah. The run up to it was, theoretically, it probably could have been done where I was with the deadlift and stuff in maybe 4 or 5 months, but it ended up a little bit longer because I think I was maybe ready I might have been ready just about in November. But then they shut for like winter, for December, January, and I couldn't do the lift in November sort of thing. So it became a maintenance thing of not burning myself out and stuff. And then they reopened at the very start of February, the 6th, and we took the road trip up, which was great, and went up and we did another couple of stones on the way and afterwards and stuff, and it was yeah, it was a great wee adventure. It was like a really enjoyable process, I have to say. Sort of the getting to be ready for it, but then the actual journey up itself was just really, really cool. We just made like a road trip out of it, like myself, my dad, my uncle, and made a lad's road trip out of it, and we went up, and there's another couple of stones we did on the trip, and yeah, like I say, it was great. Yeah, driving through like just stunning areas of Scotland.
So apart from Dinnie Stones, how much like stone lifting had you done? I know you've got your you've obviously got your what they're called, Atlas stone thing in the background there.
Yeah. Really none, is the honest of it. I had also used the replica pins, and I had sort of gone up to my grandfather's farm, and he had a couple big things that were being used to block things off, that so animals couldn't go down a certain way and stuff, and I tried moving a couple of them, just sort of thing, and but I hadn't really done any stone lifting whatsoever, and I sort of went over, and it was sort of a eye-opening experience with the first sort of stone, because they're sort of, you think to yourself, right, it's X amount of weight, I should be able to lift this because I can lift X, Y, and Z. But what happened was it's so much denser and more compact, and then the weight, it's not evenly distributed, so it's heavier on this side than that side, and but yet there's nowhere to get a hand grip, so that would naturally balance to counteract that. So you have to find it, every stone ends up like a little puzzle box by itself, on how to get it, which is quite interesting. So yeah,
it's funny because me and James are nodding along like, yeah, we know all this. Not because we're stone lifters, just because we've had David Keown on and he told us all this already. So it's like, oh yeah, totally, I get it. Yeah, but no, because that's why I was asking, because obviously you can lift like really heavy, and the Dinnie Stones are 300 odd kilos. So like I say, these stones are, because we were talking about the Irish stones as well. We'll get into that in a minute, but these ones are like in Scotland, they're kind of like 120 kilos there or thereabouts, aren't there? Some of these things.
I think the biggest one I've seen, I'm going to forget its name, is around 150 something.
Yeah.
About the biggest one. I think there is an even bit. There might be an even bigger one somewhere. I think there is a really big one somewhere, but I can't remember. I think I saw like a YouTube video of like Power Dwyer and Eddie Jones and Andy Black, the three sort of strong men, going up and trying this like monster stone that they had. But other than that, yeah, they seem to be about 150 is sort of the biggest of them.
But in Ireland, that's your starting weight, right?
It seems to be. It seems I haven't had the pleasure yet of any of the Irish lifting stones. I got coordinates sent to me the other day, actually, by David Keown, for a stone, the scalp stone. So I'm sort of hoping in a couple of weeks to get a day trip down to try that. And there's another, I think there's a stone somewhere in Belfast, it's up on the hill just outside Belfast, that I'll maybe hopefully try and do the two of them in the wee journey. And then maybe get to meet David, hopefully, here in a couple of weeks. He's lifting a big stone up in Derry. So hopefully meet the fella then for that. Would be fun. So
yeah, so for those of you listening who haven't listened, we're talking obviously about David Keown, who is Indiana Stones, who's been on the podcast twice. Once, not that long ago, is it? Was it a couple of months ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, something like that? But yeah, so you're hopefully going to actually meet him and do some stone lifting with him. That'd be That'd be
Well, I
incredible.
don't know. I hope so. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not quite sure what the land will be up there, whether it's just going to be him with this stone, or if people will be able to give it a try or whatever. But yeah, he comes across as a really helpful guy. He's sent me a couple of coordinates and a couple of emails and things, and he's been on a real pilgrimage sort of thing and finding these stones, and it's been cool to sort of follow and watch his story through sort of lockdown and to where he is now and what he's finding, and it's really cool stuff.
It's a bit
It
like
was funny. It was funny
sorry.
because when you mentioned it, it was episode 193, by the way, that he was on
Okay.
last. But when you mentioned during lockdown, you were like, yeah, so I decided to start like, oh, Dinnie Stones, and have a look, and wrote on the wall and started. I was like, careful, because there's a whole can of worms there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's enhanced David's life and stuff like that, but it's like it's basically all consumed him, hasn't it? So it's like you need to be wary of that. What else have you got written on your whiteboard, by the way? I'm very curious to know now.
What is on there? There's some Captains of Crush stuff about, like, I might have a look at like grip stuff.
Yeah.
Further down the road, and things like that. I sort of thought about getting sort of that Rolling Thunder and stuff like that, and maybe giving stuff like that a try, just for something different to mix things up. And then there's Dinnie Stones phase 1 and there's Dinnie Stones phase 2. So yeah,
is that going to be how long you can hold them for?
So, yeah, well, I held them and I was quite happy with how long I held them for, because I felt I could have held them for maybe another bit longer. But I'm thinking certainly maybe trying. I'm not saying I'll do it or get there, but I'm gonna, I think, certainly look at the side-by-side lift, like more conventional deadlift style of lifting them, as opposed to that straddle stance. So yeah, that might be.
Do people still, because I've seen it, I think I saw on that there was a History Channel program, a series with it was like Eddie Hall, Brian Shaw, Robert Oakhurst, and Nick Best, and they went around the world doing different sort of feats of strength, didn't they, from history? And I think they did the one where you actually had to try and pick them up and then walk them across the width of the bridge that you mentioned. That's something that you can try and do as well. I mean, that's obviously I
would certainly love to give it a try. I mean, that would be a long-term project. Yeah, I mean, that would be a long-term project. I mean, if people like Ryan Shaw are doing it, it's a whole different kind of worms. I mean, I think distance, it's about just over 5 meters, I think, the distance. So I mean, I might try and take a couple of steps with it, but I mean, if people like those guys are finding it a big challenge, it's a big undertaking, like something like that. But I mean, there's other stones as well that are on the list, and there's you had Mark Valente on a while back, and he had done Husafell and things like that, and whether that's a possibility or something like that, or so there's possibilities, and there's things there. They all have big question marks beside them, underlined a few times just to emphasize,
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And what was I going to say? Because the Husafell we saw, didn't we, Pete? Pavlo Cordiaca try the Husafell, the walk with the kind of replica Husafell that's the same weight and everything. It was a couple of years ago at the UK Strongest Man, and he had to pick it up and try and break the record, and he looked really good for ages. And I think he turned, and it kind of, because when you obviously do the Husafell in Iceland, it's around like a sheep ring or a goat ring, isn't it? It's like you go round. You go around in like a circle. Whereas this, they had it set up in the arena, and it was kind of like probably 30 meters, turn around 30. You know, you had to do like a proper 180-degree turn and go back. And he looked really comfortable, and he was making it look really easy, but then he turned, and it kind of, you know, he lost control of it as he turned, and it just kind of dropped it. So
yeah,
you kind of didn't do it. But
that was hilarious as well, because he was sitting in the crowd, wasn't he? He was below where we were.
yeah,
He went, oh, we've got Kodiaki here who's going to try, and he just like stood up like as if it was a bloke out of the crowd, like, yeah, I'll do it.
yeah. Yeah, dearie me. Oh, that's fantastic. So you've got all this great stuff coming up. And obviously, I mean, and I just want to ask as well about the round, the Atlas stones, the actual, you know, the perfectly spherical stones that you can lift up onto the platform. What kind of weight can you lift on those at the moment?
But at the minute, I mean, I'm just going by what I have in the garage. The biggest I have sort of about 100 kilos sort of thing, and I'm sort of doing that now sort of for sort of almost for reps, I guess. So I'm sort of at a point now where I sort of need to maybe go shopping a little bit and get a few things to see what pocket money I have, and buy a few things maybe. But yeah, I mean, it's a weird sort of thing to get into, because the way I have them set, I don't use tacky or anything for the extra grip. It's just that there's a bit of tacky left on from whoever had them whenever I bought them, whenever I got them off somebody. But other than that, I just use chalk for it to try and sort of get a bit closer to what it'll be like if you're lifting a natural stone sort of thing. So yeah, it's not the heaviest stone by any stretch of the imagination, but it's sort of, I'm sort of throwing it in anyway as sort of like secondary work after the primary lift or something like that. So you're in a bit more fatigue with it anyway. So it's sort of
yeah, but without tacky, because I've got a few stones recently and I've ordered some more, and the heaviest one I'll have is 100. But the most I've done is 90, but I couldn't get the 90 up without the tacky, because it's just like you say, it's just a spherical, you get your hands on it. And if you're doing that without tacky, I mean, that's, you know, lifting
slide straight off it.
Yeah, you just can't if you can get the stick on it, you can lift it up. But if you can't get that stick on it, it's very difficult. So for you to be, you know, like you say, doing 100 kilos for reps, just almost as a secondary exercise without tacky, then that's fantastic. Yeah, brilliant.
So it'd be interesting to see what we're sort of having a thought of, maybe like doing something next year, sort of a tour maybe or something, and we'll sort of maybe after August I'll sort of maybe knuckle down and have a look more at training that way, once I get the Strongfirst SFG recertification out from under me. So
yeah. Oh, because you mentioned, didn't you, you're going over to Germany, you're going over to Stuttgart, are you, to do that?
Yeah, going over to Germany. That's going to be really cool. I had the pleasure of being, whenever I did the Dinnie Stones, Sven Rieger had programmed for me, because he had done the Dinnie Stones before himself. And it'll be cool to meet him in person, sort of thing. And likewise, another coach that was over there I had worked with for a while, fella Kenneth Bulliard, and it'll be nice to meet him in person as well. So that'll be cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And I mean, you've also...
Oh, it's a pity, because Sven's a dick in real life. That's a joke, by the way.
No, I've met Sven a couple of times. He's a lovely guy.
He's the nicest man in the world, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. Yeah, he's a lovely guy. We'll have to get him on here. Actually, we might have we? We'll have to get Sven on here. Yeah. But no, he's a lovely guy. Because also, I mean, so I suppose just a couple of things before we start to wrap up, Andy. I just start to know. Obviously, you mentioned, you know, you're married, you got a couple of kids, so you're kind of you have to fit training around, and you still do your other. You still got a job outside of fitness.
Yeah, I mean, so I've sort of I've been where I am now for 18 years, sort of as a shift worker, and sort of have always sort of, once I went back into getting myself fitter and stuff again, I've sort of always managed to keep it going around the shifts. But then I sort of came to sort of a not an epiphany, but I sort of came to a sort of a way of training around shifts that seems to work for me. The way sort of I'll arrange the training sessions in a week based on my shift pattern sort of thing. So I'll sort of rearrange it that way, and it sort of means that I'm sort of able to keep intensity where it's been programmed at, rather than having to think about dropping 10% or something like that, because I'm in the middle of a block of night shifts or something. So yeah, but I've managed to keep it going. It sort of becomes, it's a bit of my shift pattern works on like a 8-week rotating pattern, and I can therefore program for 8 weeks at a time, and I sort of look at my shifts and I sort of just rearrange, right, that's where I'm going to be absolutely shattered. That's a rest day, non-negotiable. There I'm going to be my freshest, so that's where I'm going to put sort of, say, a heavy deadlift session for the week, and then I sort of just move it around. So even if it's like heavy, light, medium, heavy goes there, light goes there, medium goes there. It gives a bit of a randomness to every week, but it sort of means that I'm able to stay on plan without having to drop numbers down a wee bit.
This is really interesting, because I worked shifts for about 20 minutes, like many years ago, like 20 odd years ago. And it was in an office as well. Anyway, but I was working shifts, and it was like, it's one of those things, you just have to shift your days around, don't you? Because some days you're really tired, other days you're all right, and what have you. So what I love about what you've just said there, speaking it from like with a programming hat on, like you've just said, and it goes with that quote that gets chucked around all over the shop. If you've only got 60% to give and you give 60%, you've given 100%, right?
Yeah.
So like you say, on the days that you're like, and it's not like it's a surprise that you're tired.
Yeah.
Because you've been on nights then, like, for a couple of days or whatever. So you're like, well, why would I program an 80% day?
Yeah.
On after that, when I could program a 60% day and then do an 80% day on the days when I've been working days or something like that. You know what I mean? So there's always, that's what I love about this, because obviously a lot of people say, like, I haven't got time and I've got kids and I've got this to worry about and that to worry about. And I know you had other things to worry about in the past as well. So it's like, you've managed to fit it through all of that and still to get some big achievements as well. So, I mean, that's massively on you. That there's like, none of these are small achievements, and this makes them even bigger in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, what I found was basically, you just have like a heavy, light, and a medium day. You put, and on a week-to-week basis, you just arrange it that way. So, okay, yes, it does make it a bit random, which what you're doing, like Monday won't always be heavy day or whatever. But it sort of just means you can purposely, if I know like I'm going to be tired, nervous system won't be really firing, heavy deadlifts aren't really going to be ideal, you know, so move them to whatever day. I mean, even with the Dinnie Stone project, I sort of, Sven had given me the program, and the one thing I sort of did to it was sort of, if there was a heavier day and a lighter day for the Dinnie lifts, was I just purposely moved them where they stayed on like day 2 and day 4 or whatever it was of the weekly plan, but I moved them around just so that if that was the heavier day, it would be when I'm fresher, and if the lighter day, then whenever I'd be a little bit more tired, sort of thing. And it worked really, really well, and it's worked well with a few different things. Like, works well with heavy snatches and things like that, I find, as well, and pressing programs and things. So yeah.
And you're training at home in your garage, and looks like you've got a good setup there, and obviously that's where I see all of your videos of you training. That obviously works well for you, and you train you train totally on your own, don't you? You don't train with anyone. So like you say, you work shifts, so you program in the sessions, the intensity and the time that you do them just around you. Are there challenges with just training on your own? I mean, there are obviously benefits because you can do it just whenever you want, but I mean, are you always okay training on your own?
Yeah, I mean, you're sort of a bit like Gollum in his cage, hissing at the world. I just find it worked for me, and I haven't really ever had a problem motivating myself to get going. Once I initially went back down and decided enough's enough, time to get myself back on track. I've been lucky along the road because I've sort of come across, whether it's been coaches who've been programming for me, whether it's people I've met, things like the Tactical Strength Challenge, whether it's things like the SFG for Strong First, and it's sort of kept like a network together, and it's all been people who sort of keep like me, being able to keep me motivated by following them, seeing what they're doing and stuff like that. Like, we're really lucky over here. Like, we've got quite a strong group. I mean, Stephen's gym has like Martina and Ruth and Karen and stuff, and they're class, you know, and they sort of keep you motivated by following them sort of stuff. And it's things like that. So I've sort of use social media that way. I keep me motivated and keep me sort of going that way. But yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we'll wrap up there, Andy. Thank you so much. I know we've had a few dropouts on the internet a little bit, but hopefully everybody's been able to keep a track of what we've been talking about. Don't think it's been too bad. So it's been just really interesting. And like I say, first person ever. This is episode 203. First time we've really talked about the Dinnie Stones. So yeah, really, really interesting. And I hope, you know, I'm sure I'll see some bits on social media, but I really hope you have a great time with these few stones in Ireland, and you get to meet David, and we kind of see maybe some videos of you lifting some natural stones with him, which would be incredible. Pete, have you got anything you'd like to say as we kind of wrap up?
No, I just think this is great because these are the episodes that resonate with a lot of people, aren't they? Because it's like, well, you know, you can get people who are a world champion in this or strongman in this and all of that, and you kind of are that, but you've worked the job for 18 years. You've built a life and a family. Like I said earlier, you've got, you know, you were training in a garage with no roof on at one point. I seem to remember. You know, all of these things, and it's like, and you've just basically collected stuff over the years, and then it's just all you've just found this groove, which is brilliant, and I love it. And we've talked about that a lot in the past about you know, it's you start out and then it's the character you become. It becomes you.
Yeah.
And then actually the motivation in that isn't a thing, is it? You just get up and get it done. So yeah. So there you go. I love it. I love it.
It's like
I've been following you for years and I've seen it all happening. I just think it's amazing.
It's like when we spoke to David Keown as well, didn't we? Because he does everything he does, but he's still got a full-time job, hasn't he? Like in a builder's merchant, and he's got a very normal kind of job, and he's got a family and kids and everything. So no, it's brilliant. Yeah, really, really good. And yeah, that's great. If people, Andrew, if people do want to follow you, and I highly recommend that they do, to kind of just see some of this training and to see the garage that you're in at the moment, and when you're training in there. What's the best way? Is it best to follow you on Instagram?
Yeah, just probably Instagram. That's where I put my sort of training stuff. It's just sort of a diary, I suppose, to keep me honest of my stuff. And yeah, I'm sort of Gira _ garage.ni, and yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So on Instagram, it's at Gira, GIRYA_garage. And then you'll see Andy on there, but definitely give him a follow. on there, and that's fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us, Andy. That's great talking to you and hearing all about the certainly everything really. That, like we say, had no idea about your injuries pre SFG, and then all the training for the Dinnies, and then what you're potentially, what's on that whiteboard with the question marks after it is really interesting as well. So
big question marks, big question marks.
And just prior to, so thank you everybody for listening as well. And just prior to coming on, I just managed to sort out. We got Lucy Underdown coming on the podcast in 2 weeks' time. So she's just won Britain's Strongest Woman at the weekend just gone, and she is the strongest female deadlifter in the world. The first woman to deadlift 700 pounds. She's now over 700 pounds. I think it's about 300 and I think she's gone a few kilos. It's around 320 kilos deadlifter. So she will be joining us in a couple of weeks' time, along with lots of other guests that we'll have lined up. But yeah, thank you so much. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. That's where we're trying to get reviews on there, and then we can see them, and then we'll read them out online and send you out some merch. So if you do that, and we will be back next week for episode 204. Thank you very much, Mr. Peter Lance.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you, guys.
Brilliant. And we'll see you next week for episode 204. Until then, bye-bye.